Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have another episode in our Spoiler Spotlight series in which I talk about, well, spoilers and tell you what my thoughts are on them. But before that, just a quick reminder to click subscribe if you enjoy my videos. We're well on our way to 1 million subscribers and your support means everything to me. And today we're going to be talking about Ojer Kaslem, Deepest Growth. For 3 colors and 2 green, it's a legendary creature, God 6/5 with trample, and whenever Ojer Kaslem deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library. You may put a creature card and or a land card from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom in a random order, and when Ojer Kaslem dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. On the flip side, it's Temple of Cultivation, which is a land that taps 1 green and has 2 colorless 1 green. Tap, transform, Temple of Cultivation. Activate only if you control 10 or more permanents and only as a sorcery. So before we get into the card itself, I wanted to quickly reference something that someone mentioned in one of my recent videos. They were kind of saying that I was mispronouncing the names of the gods and that they shouldn't be Ojer, but rather Ojer, which is the way that he kind of spelled it out in the description. And I think the intention behind it was quite good. He was basically trying to say that these cards come from a Hispanic or Mesoamerican kind of language basis, and therefore we should try to pronounce them as accurately as possible. I have a couple of issues with that. The first is that this is obviously a fictional setting, and even though it is heavily inspired by these cultures, it is still a made-up language and made-up words. So I think any way to pronounce them goes, really. And just in case you think I'm being very Anglo-centric or something like that, I'm actually a native Spanish speaker. I'm half English and half Spanish, so I certainly know how to speak Spanish and how to pronounce these words in a Spanish way, but I just feel like it's not really necessary to do so, and I also feel like most people are going to be pronouncing this as Ojer Kaslem or some variation of that, so there's not really any point in overpronouncing it as it quote-unquote should be. Anyway, as for the card itself, this is a pretty powerful effect. You're getting a super strong trigger once you connect with this. You might get to put 2 permanents into play, which is obviously very, very strong. If you whiff on one of them, it can be a little bit awkward, so you're probably going to be wanting to buff this creature's power quite a bit. Other than that, I'm a little bit less high on this than on some of the other gods because, again, it needs to be attacking and connecting, just like the back god, to do anything at all. That makes it a lot more vulnerable to removal, and it makes it a lot less good to just sit around and do stuff for you. It also means that flipping it back over is less good because you have to wait a whole entire other turn for it to be able to attack. So all of that makes it a little bit weaker, I think, than some of the other gods that we've seen. The flip condition is also a little bit hard to meet if you've been board wiped, for example, because a lot of your permanents have probably gone then. I do like that it's basically referencing the ascend mechanic from the original Ixalan block. You can only flip this back over if you have 10 or more permanents, which is kind of what the old ascend mechanic was basically doing. So that is kind of cool. I think it's still a pretty good card, and it's going to see play in certain decks that can buff it fairly reliably and maybe protect it a little bit, because you can get a ton of value. But it is also capped somewhat in the value you can get, seeing as even if you hit for 20, you're only going to get 1 creature and 1 land. It seems like a fair card, not particularly pushed, not particularly broken in Commander, but a good card nonetheless that I look forward to play in some of my decks. So there you have it. Those have been my thoughts on this new spoiler. What do you think about this card? Please let me know in the comment section below. I read all comments and respond to all of them too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care.